Hello and welcome to the third episode of Learn From My Mistakes. Welcome to Boonatix, the community for SimRacing beginners and enthusiasts alike. I have to really thank everyone for the positive and great feedback that you gave me after the first two episodes. Really, everybody seems to appreciate my efforts here and that I'm like really coming out, showing what's going on, like, you know, the unfiltered SimRacing. So I'm just really continuing the series. I enjoy it. I'm learning a lot. You are learning a lot. So let's keep on doing this. And if you haven't done so far, please consider subscribing to the channel so that you're not missing any of the future episodes and also my live streams. And if you appreciate the content that I'm doing, please give me a thumbs up to help support the channel. So without further ado, let's jump into episode 3 of Learn From My Mistakes. So for my first mistake, let's jump back to Laguna Seca, where in my last episode I already showed you, I think, 1 or 2 incidents. And this particular mistake is actually really a very important one, because the races with ACCSS always had a pit stop. And usually I was pretty aware of how, you know, pit entry and pit lane and everything works out and, you know, what to do. But unfortunately at Laguna Seca I was not paying attention, and what happens is actually I dive into the pits and suddenly get surprised that my pit is the first one in the line, completely messing up the entry, coming to a standstill, stopping the engine at a totally, completely wrong angle. I was hoping that the pit crew might move me forward, but it didn't happen. And I'm panicking, trying to start up the car and move up again, hoping that now it works out. And I think I'm losing about 40 to 50 seconds there. So let's check the outside perspective and explain what I should have done differently. So I'm already approaching the pits. One important thing is actually that you should always use the indicator when you want to go into the pits. I didn't do that in this case, and yeah, diving in, turning in, and at this moment realizing, oh my god, that my pit is actually at the first, and I'm just swerving it in, completely wrong angle, coming to a standstill. And this would not have happened if I would have actually paid attention when joining the server and checking where my pit is. Because when doing free practice and qualifying, most of the time you don't drive back into the pits. You do your stint, you park the car, escape, return to garage. And that was actually now really a huge mistake in this case, as I was really not paying any attention to where I'm standing in the pits. Even when I was exiting the pits lane, I was not really thinking about that I'm actually the first slot. So when you are jumping into a race server, into the race session, and you are aware that you have to do a pit stop, always check which position your pit is, and at least 2 or 3 times practice a pit stop in the free practice session, in the race session. So you're starting the practice session, just do an out lap, do a few quick laps for your tire pressures or whatever, and then drive back into the pits and check if everything is right and which pit lane you have, so that you don't do the mistake that I've just done. This is really a crucial and a very, very important tip. Always practice pit stops, and when you're on the race server, again, check which pit lane you are, and if you have time to, like, for example, adapt the pit strategy or change anything while you're going into the pits, or if you have to do it like 1 or 2 laps earlier. So for the next scene, let's jump into the last race I had at Donington Park in the GT4 Camaro with SimRacing XP, and we were so far back at the field that we had to start out of the last corner, and I had a really good start actually, was able to overtake the Porsche in front, and then I was not quite sure where to go. You can see that I actually get dive bombed on the inside right, and twice. So I lose 2 positions, lifted the throttle, get overtaken by the Porsche. So again, I basically made up 1 position to then just lose 3 positions because I was very careful at the start. So let's check the outside view to show you better what happened and what I maybe should have done differently. So that was a really interesting and tricky situation actually. As we were approaching the last corner, I was like, oh my god, this looks like we are actually really starting out of the corner, and yes, it happened. So fortunately here I was on a really good and tight line early on the exit, and really able to push past the Porsche in front of me. And then I was not really sure where to go, and I thought, okay, the middle looks clear, so I'ma just stay in the middle. But as it turns out, that was not such a good idea because I'm leaving the door wide open on the inside here. Although it was a good defensive start, not taking any risk, good on the brakes, closing in on the cars in front of me. But having a BMW dive on the inside, I was getting a bit irritated, going a bit wide, letting the car coast to the outside, and immediately a second car dives in and uses the inside line. And this basically completely confused me. And then I saw on the left the Porsche being very close, so I lifted and kept on coasting, losing 3 positions there. So I'm actually not sure if it would have been a better idea to close the door on the inside. Usually yes, but in this case, after talking with the 2 drivers from the BMW and the Porsche, they actually said they were a bit late on brakes. So it might have happened that I would have been crashed out of the race, but you never know. So actually, the logical conclusion here would have been to cruise to the inside and really close the door, to not give anyone even the idea to dive in. And by closing the door, the people behind me would have needed to brake a bit earlier. And what would have then happened actually is I would have been on the inside line out of the turn and probably would have even been able to close up better to the Camaro and the Aston up front, and then maybe made a move happen after the first sector here, and position me better. But in hindsight, I actually think it was an absolutely defensive and safe start, and that's always my number 1 priority now, and should always be your number 1 priority. Really be careful at the start, but don't ever lose the connection to the cars in front of you. Don't leave a gap open. Always try to be as close as possible to benefit from a very, very fast reaction when the lights turn green. You have a good start and you can maybe catch up and overtake someone in the first turn. So one somehow similar example is another race start to our 4-hour Kyalami race, where it actually looked like we are also starting out of the last corner, but actually the green lights were a bit after the last corner, and I kind of missed that, and there is a gap opening. And what's actually going through my head right now is, oh my god, I'm way far off. I need to close the gap, even though it's a 4-hour race. So that was actually my first mistake, and then I'm way too late on brakes, bumping into the car in front of me and completely unsettling him. And yeah, unfortunately something that I could have prevented. So let's take another look what happened there and what I could have done much better. So as we were approaching the last corner, I was way too far away from the cars in front of me, and I noticed that way too late and was not really sure when the green lights will pop off. And yeah, I was so late on the accelerator there, and even though it's a 4-hour race, I was already stressing myself, which was the first mistake and should not have been done. And then, if we look here, I'm braking a tiny bit, always a tiny bit, and I'm just trying to get closer to the cars in front of me. And as a GT4s at the back of the field, I should have been more careful, because there could have been GT3s crashing, there could have been some kind of incident, but I noticed then that I'm way too late on brakes, bumping into the Aston in front of me. Fortunately enough, he was able to catch the car, but again, this was the start for a 4-hour race, and I was already getting really aggravated by that, because it was another stupid mistake by myself. And as it goes on, then just a turn later, it seems that I completely got that guy out of his rhythm. He was totally off his line, bumping into GT3, getting bumped by another GT4 car and taken out of the race. So lots and lots of consequences by just one mistake. And what would have been much better here is for me actually stay much closer. As you have seen with my start in the Camaro, I was much better, much more closer to the cars in front of me, and even by reacting very fast, able to make up a position. So I should have done the same here, and if I would have been closer to these cars, I would have probably not started to stress out myself so much. And just being able to cruise along, brake early enough and keep my position. So always make sure that when you're starting, you are really sticking with the cars in front of you and around you, and be early on the brakes to then just be able to stick to them, maybe have a better exit, but always keep looking up ahead if there is any incident or anything happening that you might react to, might need to take evasive action, or yeah, Just don't try to be too slow and too defensive. Always be on your toes to have a good start and be able to go with the flow. So for the last clip for today, let's jump back into an older replay that I found, which is actually from the beginning of August, from racing with ACCSS in the old Merc AMG GT3. I was not as experienced, doing a lot of mistakes, and I actually keep doing them. And as you can see, the ultimate dive bomb, way too late on brakes, and I would lie when I say it never happened afterwards, because as you know from episode 1 and episode 2, it actually happened quite often. And but again, let's take the opportunity and check what was going on there and what you can do differently if you're ever in a situation like this. So I had actually a really good start at that race. I really remember that one. It was a pretty cool race actually, and you can see that I'm really close to the Porsche up in front of me. But what happens is actually that, as you can see here, I'm way too late on brakes, way too close behind him, and I try to evade, go to the inside, clip the grass, lose all my braking power actually, can't turn in the car, and unfortunately bump the Porsche completely out of the race. And you can see that if we just take another closer look on the braking points, the Porsche starts braking here. So he's already on the brakes round about after he passes a car length of like the brake marker here with the tarmac on the outside. I see that, or I don't see that. I can't really remember because it was so long ago, but I'm braking way past that brake marker actually, and a few meters later than a Porsche actually. So what I should have done in this situation back then is actually brake even earlier at the beginning of the brake marker, or anticipate the brake action of the Porsche in front of me, and immediately when I see the brake lights pop up, smash my brakes as well, but keep the car straight. What I'm doing here is kind of steering to the right and sacrificing braking power and stability, and then completely going into the dirt, clipping the grass, just sliding at this moment, unable to turn in the car. So by braking too late, I completely reacted too late. It would have been actually better to swerve the car to the outside, because then I would have had a longer braking distance, would have been able to slow down the car and not crash into the Porsche, because he had the better line. He was actually going for the inside, and he noticed that I'm coming in and dived to the outside, but he did not expect that I was unable to catch my car. He actually was already making room and then turning in, because he was expecting me to dive in and turn it in. But yeah, unfortunate incident. So the better decision in this case, if not braking early enough, would have been to go to the outside and just, you know, take the outside line, use the brake distance, turn in the car, which would have maybe opened up the door to cars coming up behind me, but I would have stayed out of trouble. I would have not punted the Porsche out of the race. But always keep in mind, when following another car, to really always pay attention to when they are braking, and always expect an earlier brake marker and brake earlier, especially in this case, which was the first lap. There is no need to push or risk any incident. Okay, so that's it with episode 3. I hope you found it as insightful as the first 2 episodes. I actually have to admit, in the past 2 or 3 races, the incidents fortunately became much less, and I'm improving, and I hope these videos and these scenes also help you to improve and to learn from my mistakes. And yeah, again, if you enjoyed this, I really appreciate your thumbs up. If you haven't done so far, please click subscribe for the future episodes and live streams. There is a bunch of interesting content coming up, and all I can say now is really thank you a lot for your support. Thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, and I see you soon.